Joe Biden has gone on The View and he's attempted to rewrite history that he wasn't kicked out. Take a look at this.
Did you feel that your hand was forced, and what is your relationship with Speaker Pelosi now?
My relationship is fine. Look, I never fully believed the assertions that somehow there was this overwhelming reluctance of my running again. I didn't sense that. And although the polling, as I said, Biden's polling was different, the fact of the matter is my polling was about, we're always within range of beating this guy.
It's so awkward to watch. He just laughs at something so uncomfortable. Is he really convincing anyone, Emily?
No, and it is really hard to watch because it seems like he continues to deteriorate even further, and it's so easy when you're watching to forget that he's still the leader of the country and to forget that he's still the one who has the rigorous schedule of the president of the United States when he sort of takes his tie off and goes on The View and just chats with everyone. He's definitely not convincing anyone that he is on totally perfect terms with Nancy Pelosi, unless and I mean this seriously, as an American, I find it thoroughly depressing, unless he actually just really struggles to grasp what happened because of his senility and his age. And that seems entirely plausible to me as well. That's, when you stumble into what he said earlier on that in that appearance on The View, as we just mentioned, kind of getting out ahead of Kamala Harris. Now, he did that to the Obama administration rather famously back in 2012, but this was a very just strange slip up on his part. So it's hard to know exactly how sharp his mind is, and interviews like this just really hit that home.
Yeah, he does have that hero complex, so maybe he still just hasn't come to terms with the fact that he was kicked out, but still news to him. Look, I didn't think there was anyone more painful to listen to than Kamala Harris or Joe Biden until I heard from the First Lady of Minnesota, Gwen Walt. Here she is.
Are you ready? Let's hear it loud and clear like we said. Mr. Trump, Mr. Vance, please mind your own business. Oh, that was excellent.
She needs to stop. If she wants to really help her husband, Tim Walz, she actually needs to stop.
This follows that appearance she made last week where she was saying, we're going to do bye-bye to Donald Trump, treating the audience at a rally as though they were like kindergartners who had to turn the page. She was doing the motion.
Forgetting that Joe Biden's the president.
It's so weird. And she actually, when Tim Walz was named VP, had a moment that gave a lot of people pause when it was dug back up. And it was her talking about how she had opened the windows of their Minneapolis home to smell the fires of the riots in 2020 that happened while Tim Walz was governor of Minnesota. A very famous moment in modern American history at this point when Minneapolis was burning. And she said she opened the windows of the home just to smell the fires coming from the riots. So she's not exactly coming across as like typical American housewife, if that's what they're going for. It's coming across a little bit darker than that, to be honest.
Next week, we will see Tim Walz and JD Vance take to the stage in a debate. What are you expecting from this?
It's a good question. I think a lot of people on the right underestimate Tim Walz's appeal with sort of people in the suburbs. Now, if you look in Minneapolis, or if you look in Minnesota, I should say, it's actually never really done particularly well with rural voters. They've voted for people other than Tim Walz, in fact, even though national Democrats are advancing him as some sort of rural American whisperer. But with suburban voters, there's something that could really make them more comfortable with this sort of affable, middle-aged assistant football coach. If Tim Walz, if a version of Tim Walz that's, kind of good at campaigning comes out, JD Vance, I think, can come across as harsh. I, personally like JD Vance, and I think he can come across really well. But if you're pushing him to talk all day about issues where he's uncomfortable right now, talking about the differences between him and Donald Trump on abortion, that's an issue that's going to be better for Tim Walz, and Tim Walz is going to be more comfortable with it. He's not the worst politician in the world. I think he's kind of a weird guy, but he's at least, he's not his wife. I'll say that.
Right. Okay. And what impact do you think it will really make to the campaign? Are people really paying attention to these two?
No, it'll have very little effect on the campaign, but it'll be a very big moment I think for understanding where the country is headed. I think a lot of people will be watching it with curiosity because these two men are now new celebrities. Yeah. And it'll drive the news cycle. There's no question about it. It'll drive the news cycle. I don't think it will weigh on the minds of many voters, though, when they actually go to cast their ballots.
Now let's look to Donald Trump. Ryan Wesley Routh has been charged with attempted assassination after allegedly spending 12 hours on Donald Trump's golf course in Florida. And now Trump's campaign has also revealed that Donald Trump has been briefed about a real and specific threat from Iran to assassinate him. Yet, of course, we heard Joe Biden making jokes on The View earlier about Trump being squashed, which is unbelievable. But these are really scary times for Donald Trump, and now he's heading back to Butler, Pennsylvania on October 5. He's pretty brave, Emily.
I mean, going back to Butler, Pennsylvania is going to be a very powerful moment for Donald Trump. No two ways about it. I would expect him. One thing that, I say this not cynically, as though he's just capitalizing the political benefits of it. I don't mean that. There are though, obviously, political benefits to be gained from looking strong and from looking like you're just facing down your enemies. And that's what I would expect Donald Trump to really, really emphasize when he's back in Butler. Now, I'm curious to see how partisan the speech is, because a lot of people expected the RNC speech to be this move to the center, to be an appeal to persuadable voters. And it started that way. And then when he went off script, it got very partisan, much to the dismay of some of his staff. But that's Donald Trump. And, I have a hard time imagining he goes to Butler and is, some sort of milquetoast, mushy middle type of guy. So I think he's looking for a really big moment.
Absolutely. Well, we will wait and see. Of course, praying for his safety after what's happened over the past couple of months. But Emily Jashinsky, UnHerd correspondent, or DC correspondent at UnHerd, I should say. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.